All right, should be popping up here in just a second. How's it going, everybody? Another day of NHL DFS. This is the NHL DFS strategy show from Awesemo.com. And we've got another nice five gamer with the late night hammer, possibly again. Been some fireworks in that series. So don't be counting your money if you're winning early. And at the same token, don't be counting yourself out if you've got some of this late game exposure. This looks to be a pretty exciting slate. I'm joined, as I was on Monday, by Michael Clifford. Slim Cliffy. What's up, Cliffy?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just yeah, I was thinking about tonight's slate and I was just thinking like I'm not even gonna bother checking my lineups until that game starts. Like there's just no point even seeing where you're at because you could probably see half the goals of the entire slate come from that game.
Yeah, you're just gonna tilt yourself into oblivion if one way or the other. You'll look and think it's over and go to sleep and maybe miss a great game, or you'll look and just see your winnings trickle down farther and farther and farther. So there's a showdown today, but we're probably not going to talk about that. The prizes are tiny on DraftKings, and I don't even know if FanDuel is running a single game slate. They keep doing these 3 game main slates, which is fine. I mean, it's nice to have a different lock, but I don't know why they cut it off at 3. Like, why not just cut off the first game or the first 2 games or something? But who knows what FanDuel is doing. We do know what SuperDraft is doing, though. Took a beating over there yesterday. I just played one lineup, but they do have some tournaments going on over on SuperDraft for NHL. Overall, been pretty successful just using the DK or FanDuel projections on the site and loading up FC using the multipliers there. Great thing about SuperDraft is that they don't have salaries, so you can pretty much play whoever you want. If you want to play McDavid, Draisaitl, Clefbaum, Patrick Kane, that's fine. You can do that, but you get rewarded for playing some of these sleeper players, some of these guys that have high multipliers that might be good players, but just not in as good of spots. So it kind of levels the playing field. If you want to get started over on SuperDraft and you want to deposit at least $20 onto SuperDraft, you get a free $10 with promo code Awesemo10. We've got a jam-packed schedule once again today. Let's see if I can keep track of all the shows we've got. So we had NBA strategy, we had MLB strategy, which is going on right now. 2 shows at once. And then NBA Live Before Lock with Lofty and Adam. It looks like it's going to be at 12:30 Eastern. And then the PGA, the PGA show is going to be a Live Before Lock. They couldn't do a strategy show because we're having some issues out east with hurricane, people losing power. So the schedule will be kind of you'll see the shows happen when they actually happen. We might see some be switched around or whatever, but we'll have the early bird. There will be MLB, NBA, PGA, all the kind of content you guys are used to. The difference is it's just all going to be on one day instead of things being spread around. So crazy times. Just make sure you subscribe to our channel, and then you'll see when we go live for whatever sport we're talking about that hour. Let's quick talk about last night. Sly Guy 717 took down the 20K over on DraftKings. 7 lineups, 5 of them cashed, profited over 20,000. The winning lineup was a Calgary Josh stack. It was Backlund, Monahan, Lindholm, Gaudreau, Kachuk, Mark Giordano, Cam Talbot, and then his other guys were Aho, who had 37 points, and Goligoski, but it didn't really matter. The 1.3 points there, all the Calgary guys did pretty well. I would have thought there was something in the late night hammer game in the winning lineup, but when you just stack 6 Flames plus the goalie, I guess you don't need the last game on the slate. How did it work out for you yesterday?
Yeah, I did all right. I was hurting going into the final game, but Minnesota, Vancouver kind of pulled me over the finish line, pulled my carcass over the finish line. Won a little bit of money, which is nice. It's just, we were talking before the show. You just look over your lineups and you just see the spots where you missed. Like, one guy I brought up was that I used Kyle Connor as a one-off quite a bit instead of John Tavares. They're similarly priced. I think Connor was 72, Tavares is 71. Connor didn't do anything. I think 2 shots in 24 minutes of ice time. Meanwhile, Tavares had a smash game. So, those are the razor thin margins. And I think one thing I want to talk about just briefly before we jumped into the slate, want to get through this quickly, is I talked about this at Dauber before the season. I'm treating this playoffs pretty much as it's a brand new season. Not that it's a continuation of the 2019-20 regular season, right? Because they had 5 months off. Like they had more than a full off season. And like training camps would be starting in about a month from now anyway. And we'd be considering, somebody like Kotkaniemi, a third-year player. We'd be considering Kirby Dach, a second-year player. We'd be, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes. We'd be considering all these rookies as second-year players. So, Kirby Dach, we'll talk about him later. He's a guy that's looked great so far these playoffs. Jesper Kotkaniemi has looked great so far these playoffs. Don't hang your hat on everything that happened in the 2019-20 season, because I think you do have to kind of look at this as a brand new year.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that, but it makes sense. I mean, they had a full off season off. So yeah, it's the same season. They're finishing up the playoffs, but whenever the next season starts in December, that's not too far out from now. So these guys aren't going to change that much between now and then. So that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I've got my lineups pulled up, or at least my top finishing lineup. I got 32nd was my best finish in this tournament. Wasn't a good night for me, as you see there. Took quite a bit of a loss, a little bit over half. In this tournament, there were some other familiar names up at the top, but just wanted to point out what I did or didn't do, which is profit. But today's a new day. We got a few more weeks of this, so it's exciting.
That's the thing, man. Is like, even if you have a bad night, you're like 8 hours away from starting all over again.
It's awesome. I'm sure I'll start liking these super long slates too, if I ever get around to competing in one of these tournaments. So it hasn't been a great few days, but my money. 150 max in NHL yesterday. So it looks like he got his FC figured out. He finished 38th. We'll maybe look at Adam's lineups in future shows here, because I'm sure he'll be up near the top quite a bit. NHL expert Adam Ship My Money share 50K winner.
Yeah, Awesemo's number one NHL expert. Ship My Money.
That's right. All right, let's go to Nashville and Arizona. 2.8 implied total for the Preds. 2.5 for the Coyotes. UC Saros, maybe Pecorine. Saros went yesterday. These teams played yesterday. Kemper for the Coyotes is who we have in for now. I would assume Kemper is pretty likely to start for Arizona. Again, things could change, but Arizona getting home ice for the first time in this series. Looks like they're going to keep Hall, Dvorak, and Kessel together. Good luck getting information about Arizona lines prior to like 3 to 5 minutes to lock. But if things switch up, I think, you should take a chance on some of these new combos that people might not react to. So just be aware of that. But what are we looking at in this game? Anything stick out to you?
Yeah, I was just looking over some of the underlying numbers. I don't want to say underlying numbers, play driving numbers, possession numbers, whatever you want to call them, through the first couple games. That Arizona top line's getting killed. They're just getting driven into the ground by mostly Nashville's top line. The Johansson, Forsberg, Arvidsson line. And it's funny, that top line for Nashville from 2016 through 2019, they were one of the top 5 lines in all hockey. Maybe just a step behind the Bergeron line or something like that. And then they completely cratered in 2019-20. So are they refinding, that magic that they had? This was over a course of 3 years and 1,600 minutes together. This wasn't some, half season 150-minute sample. This was, like I said, for years. So I'm going to be back in on the Jofa line. Johansson, Forsberg, Arvidsson. I don't think you need to full 3-man stack them. We saw that on the slate prior. Forsberg did well by himself, and then Johansson did well by himself. Arvidsson went bar down by himself. These guys are talented enough to create their own goals. Or you can 3-man stack. I have a bit of both. I'm not going to say one's right and one's wrong, but I am in on the Johansson line again. I'm mostly out on Arizona. One thing that did catch my eye was their second line. Keller, Stepan, and Connor Garland were put together. Now, Clayton Keller had a great rookie season. He had over 60 points on a god awful Arizona team, and then he's put a couple bad seasons in a row. But like I said at the top of the show, I'm treating this like as a new season. And in the first 2 games, Clayton Keller's looked real good. He's winning board battles, which is something that I don't think I saw him do in 3 years. And he's doing that consistently, and he's getting to the dirty areas in the high slot and the mid slot. He's looked real good. Connor Garland had a real good season. He had over 20 goals on offense on a team that didn't have a lot of offense. Derek Stepan's not the guy that he was 3 or 4 years ago, but he's still a competent, second, third line center. So I'm not going to have a ton of that Arizona second line. And it's also a line that was put together through the game. So we're not for sure knowing that's going to be the line. But I do have a couple shares of Garland, Stepan, and Keller, just because I think that they can do well against Nashville's second line if they do end up getting that matchup, if they are aligned together. They're cheap. They're going to be under-owned, all that stuff. There's, you can put them in with the Bergeron line, or you can put them in with the McKinnon line. Stuff like that. So I'm going to be mostly on the Johansson line for Nashville, but I am going to sprinkle in a couple of the Arizona second line, assuming that line stays together.
Yeah, I wonder how the Nashville one is going to be owned on the slate, just because they've kind of all done okay individually. They've had decent individual games, but they haven't really put it together and had a major breakout in terms of like a DFS winning performance. But they're all in the top power play. Maybe they are regaining some of that magic that they had for a few years. And then the Hall, Dvorak, Kessel line, it's also super cheap. So I'm worried that these two stacks are going to come up a little bit over-owned. I think Arizona is going to be popular. Their numbers, I think they had like a 60-minute sample, going back to March through October. They didn't play a ton together, but they were okay offensively. I don't know. I'm just a Taylor Hall guy, and they're all in the top power play, so a little bit tough for me to avoid an MME. Like if they're 15, 20, 25% or something like that in our ownership projections, I'm probably going to be, like if they're 25, I'm going to be below that. If they're 12, 10%, I might get closer to 15 to 20% of this line. So of course it's going to depend on ownership projections. I think they're a good value right now. I think value's a little bit overrated in NHL DFS when you're talking about tournaments, but if you wanted to mix in Keller instead of one of the guys on Arizona, that's another option. Or you could full power play stack it for really cheap. I know it's a low total, but it's just a lot of valuable players. I mean, Hall at 6,300 is good value. Kessel under 4K, Keller at 4K flat, and then Dvorak centering Hall and Kessel. Not too bad at 4,400. So good value there. And it's not like I like another Arizona line here or even another Nashville line. I mean, are you going to Nashville 3 at all? They're a popular third line if there ever was.
Yeah, one. I think I have. I won't double check right now and go through my lines, but I think I have one Colorado 1 and Nashville 3 lineup somewhere. But yeah, it's not a line where I'm going to go and get 15 or 20% of Nashville 3. Like I'm going to have 5 to 10% at the most.
Sounds good. I'm probably going to have like 3 to 5% in MME. So a handful of lineups, but usually never go crazy on these third lines, and certainly not the fourth lines. Yossi at 7K, Ellis 5,700. Those are kind of your premier options for defensemen on the Nashville side. And then Ekman Larson, I usually don't play him much as a one-off, and that's usually on purpose. I'll play Ekman Larson if I'm playing like Arizona 1 and he fits, but I'm not going to go out of my way to jam him in lineups. I like Chychrun a little bit better as a one-off, kind of higher upside play. Anything on the blue line for either team here?
No, I'm pretty much the same boat as you. It's just, Matthias Ekholm is a guy that always kind of intrigues me because like he never gets ownership, but like he's not bad offensively. 3 straight 30-point seasons, 1 40-point season, plays over 20 minutes every night. Like I think if you want to get different and you want to, not have Yossi because he's probably going to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate. He usually is. If you want to get a little bit different, Ekholm's probably the guy that I would turn to.
Yeah. Yossi's usually in like the 15 to 25% range, and I usually have a little bit more unless the match really stinks or the team total's low. It is
A little bit more. You mean like twice as much?
Yeah. Let's see. I had like 40% yesterday, or maybe I had 50. I can't remember. I don't know. I always jam in these expensive defensemen. That's probably a fish move, but
Well,
it's
Jake,
worked out
Hari,
okay.
Roman Yossi, name a more iconic couple, right?
Yeah. Very iconic duo there. And then also for the trio, me losing money on the slate. All right, let's go to Tampa and Boston. 2.7 implied total for the Lightning, 2.9 for the Bruins. Vasilevsky, questionable. Who knows who's going for Tampa, but Boston did announce it is going to be Rask in net for them. This is a round robin game. We haven't really loved round robin games, but we kind of trashed the Vegas Dallas game for the most part the other day. That didn't work out well. What about this one here? I mean, two premier teams, two of the best teams in all of the NHL. I have no clue how hard they're going to try. Boston was kind of content just like rolling out whoever. They didn't really hard match against the Couturier line. I don't know if they're trying not to show their cards or what if they face them. I have no clue what to do with this game because everybody's priced like they're going to try really hard.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that the Boston line was over 22,000 or whatever, like I was kind of blown away, especially given the matchup that it is. Now, I was going over the season matchups. Like I just wanted to see like if they were scoring per game. I mean, they averaged 5.5 goals per game, I think. So it's like that doesn't really tell you anything. Boston seemed to be able to generate shots against Tampa earlier in the year. They landed about 35 per game against them in the 4 games that they played. So, I mean, Vasilevsky theoretically would make a good play, but we don't know he's starting. And like you said, how hard are these teams going to try? I mean, I looked at the ice time for Tampa Bay in their first game, and it was pretty evenly distributed. Now, that was because I believe they had 0 or 1 power plays. Like, they didn't get much power play time. So, obviously, if they get the power plays and you can add a few minutes to Kucherov's ice time, then, he's up to 21 minutes or whatever. But they seem to spread the ice time around. So, I don't know if I'm going to be taking any of the expensive players out of this game. I'll probably be looking further down the lineup. I do like that. What is it? Goodrow, Gord, Coleman line. It's kind of like a checking line. I don't know why that, what took so long to get out.
It's been a long week already. It's only Wednesday.
Yeah, they're a good checking line, and like watching Yanni Gord, he had a tough year, and he's had pretty much a tough couple seasons, really. But he doesn't look bad when you watch him when he plays. Like he's fighting for the pucks in the corner. He's making plays. You can tell that he's looking for those cross seam passes that can lead to high percentage shots. He's looking for the behind the net passes. They cycle well together. It seemed like that line was playing well. So that's another one of those cheap lines along with Nashville 3 that I think I'm going to mix and match a couple, maybe do like a Gord Coleman with McDonough or something like that, just to get some cheap exposure to that game, because I think if you're going to get to Boston, you're going to get to their depth lines. You're obviously probably not going to go toe-to-toe against the top line. You're probably not going to do well against the top pair. So you want to get down to the Lozon pair. You want to get down, to the, not that Charlie Coyle is a bad player, but certainly he's no, Bergeron or Kasha or anything like that. So I probably want to get into the depth of Boston here. So I'm going to have, maybe some 2-man stacks, Coleman and Gord, or Gord and Goodrow or something like that, or some one-off Coleman. Ryan McDonough is a guy that I was really impressed with in Tampa's early game so far. He looks like a completely different defenseman than he did 6 months ago. So McDonough is a guy that I'm starting to inch up a little bit. I have some shares of him here today, but I'm mostly with you. I'm mostly avoiding the expensive players. I'm kind of just digging more into the depth, one-off Jake DeBrusk, one-off, Blake Coleman, those types of things.
Yeah, I like the one-off Coleman, especially. Kind of expensive, but he's a guy who does pop up with these games that have like 2 goals, and whether or not his line gets there is a different story. But yeah, that line's going to be completely unowned going on the road. even though it's not really on the road. But in Boston, where Boston's going to have, or against Boston, where they're going to have last change. As far as what I'm doing in this game, Boston one always gets ownership from optimizers, so people are, like I'm worried that Boston's going to be like 20% owned. The problem I always have with them is just they like you can only have a certain number of lines if you're double stacking. You either have to do like 3-2-1, or there's just not enough lines to really get there and get a good projected lineup. So that's always the issue I have with Boston one here. As long as they're not crazy owned, I'll have some of them. I got to 13% of Boston one currently, but that's without factoring in ownership. So I would think I'm probably around double digits. I'm finding there are a decent amount of lines that I think are going to be low owned that I could pair with them. It will, of course, depend on ownership projections. We should be getting those very soon. Going up against Point, Palat, and Kucherov, if they decide to match like that, I would give them the advantage. But that's just me. I'm not really interested in much on the Tampa side. Again, I have no clue how hard these teams are going to try, or if they're going to treat this like a normal game. But these two could easily match up in the Eastern Conference Finals. So maybe that's just a gentleman's agreement that no one gets injured. And Boston did lose their first game. Tampa did win. So I guess this one means more to Tampa because now Boston can't. Well, I guess it means something to Boston too, because if they beat Tampa and Tampa beats Philadelphia, I don't know. There's just so many moving parts in this game for one that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So I don't think they're going to be looking that far ahead. I don't think they're plotting out who they're going to play in the first round. I think they're just kind of being concerned with finding some chemistry with their players and keeping everybody healthy for the next week.
Sure. Oh, my mic is quieter than yours. Is that true? All right. Let me see if I can boost this up. Sometimes I'm too far away. Okay. Maybe that'll help out the sound quality a little bit. Oh, ownership's up. All right. Let me introduce the next game. And then I'll put in ownership so I'll have a better idea of what my exposures are going to be. Avalanche and Stars, 2.9 implied total for the Avs, 2.6 for the Stars, Grubauer and Bishop. Another round-robin game. We'll update if there's any changes with goalies or line combinations about half an hour before this one starts. What do we do here? Looks like we got some very cheap Stars that might be appealing to some people.
Yeah, I mean, I think where the direction I go on the Dallas side here today is Janmark, Pavelski, Radulov. Like, they're actually a pretty good line together. They're the only line with a reasonable sample that actually has an expected goals rate above league average. Like, we've talked about how bad Dallas is offensively. They're the only line that is actually above average offensively. And not only that, but they usually match up against the depth from the other teams. So if you can avoid, especially the Kadri, Landeskog, Nichushkin matchup from Colorado, I think you can probably do some damage. But again, this is one of those situations where I probably wouldn't full stack the trio. I'd probably do Pavelski and Radulov, maybe even a Pavelski and Janmark. I don't think all three of them get there together. Just like I said, they're just not a high scoring team. To see that line come out with 3 even strength goals or something like that, it's just hard to see. So for the direction I would go is 2-man stacks or 2-man plus a defenseman. Esa Lindell is one of my favorites. Today he's getting quite a bit of ice time. I think he had more than John Klingberg in their last game. So he's, at number 2, at worst number 3, he blocks a lot of shots. He takes a lot of shots. He's not very good, but he's good for fantasy. And that's all that matters for us. The other thing is the Colorado power play. Andre Burakovsky started the game on the power play, but obviously everybody remembers Kadri scoring that last second goal. Kadri bumped him off the power play until they went to 6-on-5, I believe, or 6-on-4. So is Kadri the new PP1? I don't know. Like, we just don't know. He was there earlier in the year before he got injured. Maybe they go back to that. We just have no idea. So I am sprinkling in some one-off Kadri. here and there, just because he's a good enough player where you can justify doing it on his own. It's just in case he gets that power play exposure, I think you can probably get him at reasonably low ownership because he's not expected to be on that power play. So I do have some one-off Kadri. I also noticed in Colorado's first game, Sam Girard led their team in even strength ice time, or led their defenseman, sorry, in even strength ice time. Obviously, he won't be on the top power play. That'll be Cale Makar, but Sam Girard playing a ton of minutes at a cheap price with an offensive team that talented, I don't mind him as a punt. One last thing is I think, we can check the betting sites later, but I think the Colorado side has been getting hammered. So I think we might see a little bit more ownership on them than we expect, and a little bit less on Dallas.
Yeah. So looking at ownership projections here, I think, and if you're using the projections on the site, you're going to have to do something, whether you're building lineups or you're just going to have to be aware of how much Dallas you actually get to, because they project as really good values. So like the Sagan, is it going to be Hintz and Ben? Did you go over that?
Yeah, they changed the top line. I probably should have mentioned that when I was doing my little diatribe. The top line is Ben, Hintz, Sagan, Radulov, Pavelski, Janmark, and then Gurianov, Jason Dickinson, and Corey Perry.
Okay, because I kind of like Hintz up there instead of Gurianov.
Yeah, so do I, but Jamie Benn sucks.
Yeah, he hasn't been good. Like,
no,
Sagan's been fine.
Well,
better than Ben. Better than Ben.
Yeah, okay, better than Ben.
So is Hintz playing center then?
Yeah.
Okay.
He is. Man, he might be the best player on that line now. I don't know. Like, I'm serious. I mean, like, I understand why people would want to go in that direction, because, like, I don't think that the word is out. It didn't seem like, I was checking some fantasy sites and fantasy writers this morning, and it didn't seem a lot of people knew that Hintz was on the top line.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw that pop up. I don't know how I ended up running my lineups for this, whether it was Hintz or I think it was Gurianov. So I'm going to have to redo this, but I do like that better. I was probably going to end up just limiting Dallas to like 5% or even lower than that, but Dallas's top line. But now with Hintz there, I think it looks a little bit better to me, and maybe people, like you said, won't have that combination. So from a GPP perspective, seems a little bit more appealing. They are just way too cheap. I know it's a low total. I know Dallas stinks for DFS, but McKinnon, Rantanen, and Burakovsky, I believe their numbers defensively aren't great, and maybe they see a little bit of extra time against them. This is a round-robin game, too. And Dallas just got smoked in the third period against Vegas. So I don't know. I can't really act like I know what they're going to do with matchups here.
Yeah, just kind of just jump in on that real quick. I subscribe to Adam Daly Fry's lineup matching. If anybody wants to subscribe, you can get in contact with me. I'll put him in contact with them. He has the third line for Dallas matching up against the top line for Colorado.
Faxa?
Yeah. Okay. So, that could kind of free up, Dallas's first and second lines. But at the same time, like, Ben Hintz and Sagan might match up against Kadri, Landeskog, and Nichushkin. And that's a terrible matchup.
Yeah, that's not great.
So I think I'm going to stick with my Janmark, Radulov, Pavelski, mostly Radulov, Pavelski.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So if you're looking at kind of trying to predict the line matching here, could be a potential edge. I'm going to have probably some Dallas power play stacks. If they do somehow get it going here and they can score a couple goals or an even strength goal and a power play goal. You get $5,100 Ben, $5,500 Sagan, $4,200 Pavelski, and $4,100 Radulov, plus even strength correlation for the pairs there. Klingberg at $4,500, he's another guy I usually don't play unless I'm playing some sort of Dallas power play stack or Dallas one stack, and that's probably going to be the same thing today. Same thing with like Ekman Larson and Chikrin. I prefer Heiskanen, I think, more as a one-off. I think he's had a couple good games in a row, or maybe they've just played once. But he was good in that game, and I'm probably going right back to him. Colorado, they look pretty cheap as well. I don't love the matchup with the Faxa line, if that's going to be a thing. They're pretty solid defensively. Like McKinnon 8,400, you could always one off him. So it looks like I've got a couple McKinnon, Rantanen, like two mans, but I don't think they're going to be a staple of my lineups tonight. And that's really all I got for that game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 3 out of my 20 lineups are Colorado. That's it. So.
All right, let's go to Pittsburgh and Montreal. 3.1 implied total for the Penguins, 2.3 for Montreal. Matt Murray and Carey Price probably going to start again. Let's see. Series is tied 1-1. These games do actually matter. They're going to try their hardest to win. We know that here. That's a fact. Going up 2-1 is going to be massive for whoever actually does. I think Montreal, the coach hinted at some possible changes, but I haven't seen any confirmation. Do you know anything about that? And then
No.
We're going to see Deneau against Crosby-Gensel, I'm assuming here, right?
Yeah, they're saying there may be changes. I haven't seen anything for sure. When I was looking over their prior game log, I mean, it's a situation where they're doing what we thought they'd do. They've been moving Max Domi all around the lineup. He played with Suzuki a little bit in their last game. I think he even made it to the top line from one shift. So even if they do change up the lines, like they're constantly changing up the lines during the game anyway. So like Montreal's not a team I'm super keen on stacking right now, just for that reason, is they're kind of using Domi as a rover and it's breaking up all their lines. So, do I want to 3-man stack Armia, Drouin, and Suzuki if 25% of the shifts Domi's going to be on one wing and 25% of the shifts Domi's going to be on the other wing or something like that? You know what I mean? So yeah. I'm finding myself with the Habs, like I have Kotkaniemi. I think that lines look very good for the Habs, the third line for the Habs. Kotkaniemi, Lehkonen, and Byron. Again, that's not a line that I would 3-man stack, but I do have some one-off Kotkaniemi. He's looked really good. He's one of those guys where I think the 4 or 5 months off has helped him quite a bit. At the end of the spectrum, Jonathan Drouin hasn't even looked like an NHLer. Like he's been, if you look at his numbers since he got to Montreal, by wins above replacement, he's been one of the worst players in the league, and he's been there for 3 years now, and he's looked terrible in the first 2 games. Can't make a pass, can't catch a pass, can't skate, can't shoot. Like, I don't know why they're even dressing him. So as much as I want to use Suzuki and Armia, they're just carrying around a boat anchor on their backs. So what's the point of doing that? So I find myself just going, I have a ton of the Pittsburgh top line in this slate. They're probably going to be my highest exposure line. I'm not worried about the matchup. Montreal hasn't. I was looking at the matchups in the couple games before they went to break, and Montreal wasn't using Deneau hard match. Like they were using them to match up sometimes, but it wasn't like earlier in the year where the Deneau line was playing 90% of shifts against the other team's top line. That's not the case anymore. So, if that Pittsburgh top line is going up against Domi and Jordan Wheel or Drouin and Armia, like they're just going to throttle them. And if Carey Price doesn't stand on his head again, you can see Pittsburgh putting up a big score here today. So I have a lot of the Pittsburgh top line. I've mixed in some Malkin just to get some power play stack exposure. On the flip side, I do have a fair amount of Carey Price. I think Pittsburgh one's probably going to be my highest exposed line, and Carey Price is probably going to be my highest exposed goalie. I think that's kind of the way I'm going to approach this. Because he could put up a 40 save shutout, or Pittsburgh could put up 6 goals. I think it's gonna be one of those games. So I'm with you. Both teams are gonna be trying their guts out. But if Pittsburgh's gonna, if they're gonna fade that Suzuki matchup or the Deneau matchup, then I'm in on Pittsburgh's top line.
Yeah, I think Montreal too. they're kind of off the table for me. They might come up as a good value,
Drouin
but
just sucks so much.
Drouin's
He's
bad.
literally he's sinking that whole line, man. They're unusable because of him. Like Suzuki maybe as a one-off, or me as a one-off, I would never stack them.
Okay, wow, strong conviction there. I like it. Like if I'm going to a Montreal line, it's Montreal one, just because they have the
Yeah.
best. Like they've got a long track record of being very good at 5-on-5 offensively, and maybe they can get into some advantageous spots. If they're going up against Crosby, that's not great, but kind of have to stack someone with only 5 games on the slate, and Montreal one's going to be that. Now you could go Tatar and Gallagher and leave off Deneau and just hope this isn't the game where he scores 2 goals. Or you can stack up the full line. I'm pretty comfortable playing this full line. I'm hoping they don't get broken up, but I have no clue since there was some changes being talked about to these lines. I'm assuming they're not talking about a change in net, and they're not talking about pulling Price because he's played pretty well through the first 2 games. Man, I was getting to more of the Malkin line, but hearing you talk about Pitt 1 like that, and Sheary's probably not going to have much ownership at all, I kind of like where your head's at there. So I'm going to end up upping my Pitt 1 exposure. They look, Crosby's fairly popular in the teens, but nothing where you need to kind of recoil here.
Yeah, I was just looking at he's just outside the top 20 owned. Like we don't have any Pittsburgh skaters in the top 20 owned on the slate. So I'm not super concerned with ownership really.
Yeah, Pittsburgh third highest total on the slate. I mean, a lot of low totals all around, but they're the next team behind Edmonton and Chicago. So there's kind of your pivot, I think, if you're going heavy on a team and you're trying to avoid playing all the McDavid or all the Patrick Kane or Draisaitl or whoever else expensive in that last game. I think Pittsburgh's a really, really nice pivot. I'll certainly have both of the top 2 lines, but I'm going to try to get close to even or maybe a nudge in the Crosby direction. What about
Yeah, sorry, no, I'm just looking at the matchup sheet is all, and the Pittsburgh second line, we have them matched up with Deneau a fair bit.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's what's making me go more towards Pitt 1 over Pitt 2.
Okay.
That's the tiebreaker for me.
No, that's very valuable. What about the expensive defenseman here? Letang 6,500, Shea Weber 5,300, Petrie down to 4,400. I don't mind that, but he doesn't correlate well to the line I want to stack, and that's the only issue. Any of these blue liners catching your eye?
Yeah, the guy that caught my eye more than anything is John Marino. He's looked really, really good in the first couple games. I think he's probably their number 2 defenseman in ice time behind Letang. Obviously he doesn't have the top power play time, but that's fine. Pittsburgh's more than potent enough to score at 505 for him to get an assist and a couple shots with a block or whatever. Like, I do like Marino. Marcus Pettersson as well. He's the only thing with Pettersson is that you really need block shots out of him. Montreal's had a tough time putting up shots so far this series, so that's kind of what makes me lean Marino over Pettersson. If we're looking just at the expensive defenseman, yeah, I would take Letang over Weber, price independent, but I think I have Letang in 2 of my Pittsburgh power play stacks, but that's about it. Just about everywhere else I'm going cheaper and rostering Marino.
Yeah, Weber coming off a goose egg last game. He had legitimately 0 points. Maybe he rebounds here. I don't have a ton of faith in him. Letang is always a little bit overpriced, but he's usually not one of the more popular defensemen, which I like.
I just don't think the top pair for Montreal, I just don't think it's very good. I think Shea Weber looked a lot better through the year when he was playing with Victor Mete. Like, he looked almost like he was a little bit faster. They were moving the puck better. Like Ben Sherrod is not a good puck moving defenseman. Like, I'm sorry, he's just not. And if you look at Mete with Weber compared to Sherrod with Weber, Mete and Weber were the better defensive pair this year, especially when you look at their defensive numbers. So I don't know. I'm not super high on Weber. He can obviously have monster games. We saw him have many of them this season, but I like going with the cheaper defenseman on this particular slate because there are a lot of expensive forwards I want to use.
Fair enough. Before we get to the last game, just want to mention promo code NHL is back. We've got a few more days for this. That works on NHL Monthly. 50% off your first month with promo code NHL is back. And with that, you get access to premium Slack chat, which is really valuable for NHL, especially getting those late line combinations and having all these staggered start times. It helps you keep track of everything, ownership projections, point projections that were made by Alex and myself, and then the top stack tool, everyone's favorite tool for pretty much every sport. Great look at the slate, see who's over-owned, under-owned, based on their chances of being the top two stack on the night. We've also got a bunch of free stuff. You just go to awesemo.com/NHL. You can see the power play articles, cheat sheets, and the live blog as well. All right, the premier game on the slate, and then we'll get out of here. 3.4 implied total for the Oilers, 3.1 for the Blackhawks. Mikko Koskinen and Corey Crawford, your probable starters. Looking at some of these Edmonton lines, they did stick together for the most part last game. Archibald
I'm not playing Josh Archibald.
No. You don't have to play Josh Archibald. You can get creative in Fantasy Cruncher and just X him out or put him on the third line or something. I don't think there's a chance that sticks if this game is competitive. But Edmonton got up early. McDavid basically just ended the game before it started, and so they stuck just to keep McDavid and Draisaitl on separate lines. Here in Chicago, I did see that also Doc DeBrincat and Kane were together for most of the game. So you're giving me 2 thumbs up. Do you want to talk about that line? I mean, looks like maybe one of the better plays on the slate if the lineup sites aren't going to react, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Doc, like we talked at the top of the show about how this is kind of a new season, and Kirby Doc was one of the guys I named, and he's just like, he's looked great in the first couple Chicago games. I think he had 2 assists in their last game. He's on the top power play unit. The second half of the game, in their 6-3 loss, the entire game, every single shift, it was Kane, Kirby Doc, and Alex DeBrincat. Are they going to go with that line? I don't, who knows? We don't know for sure. We just won't know. That's what I'm assuming, though. I'm assuming that that's going to be the line. Worst case Ontario, Doc and Kane are on the top power play. Yeah, I said it. Doc and Kane are on the top power play unit together. So even if they go back to their old lines, Doc and DeBrincat play on the third line together, and Kane and Doc play on the top power play unit together. So you're still getting, secondhand correlation, if we want to call it that. You know what I mean? So Doc, Kane, and DeBrincat, I think, is the second highest exposed line I have besides Pittsburgh won today. So I am going to be playing quite a bit of them. Just a couple ice time notes on Edmonton's side. Ethan Bear played 24 minutes in their last game. And Kyler Yamamoto has only been averaging about 14 minutes in their first 2 games. He played 15:30 and then 13:30. That's about 4 minutes lower than he was playing in the regular season. So Yamamoto's ice time has been completely nuked.
Yeah, I think the way you treat Edmonton, and I'm going to have a bunch of exposure to this game, at least to start with. And maybe if, if I bust out half of my lineups are dead before the last game and I know all this ownership's coming, then I'll just try to swap to Pittsburgh or some Montreal dusty stack or something just to try to Hail Mary and get a few of my lineups to cash. But I don't know how you don't have the majority of your exposure in this game, especially with if you're treating Doc, DeBrincat, and Kane like they're gonna start the game together, then I really love it. That's probably my favorite or my highest exposed line of the night from a raw points perspective. It's not quite the top, but it's right up there. So that's how I'm treating it as well. You're not going to have any clue before lock. You might not have any clue before the game, and even if they don't start the game together, I think there's a good chance that they end up skating together. If it's competitive, game stack, do whatever you want with this one. The one thing I would do on the Edmonton side is just, if you're playing Edmonton, maybe limit the amount of like scrubs that you can play in a certain lineup, because if you just use the
Yeah, yeah,
optimizer, you might
yeah.
get
I was just
Archibald Ennis or all these other dusters.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that my first couple crunches this morning, I was getting so much Alex Chase on, it was just disgusting.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch your exposures with the 3,000 or less club.
Yep. I'll mix in Chase on and power play stacks, either 4 or 5 man. Obviously, you have to if it's a 5 man power play one stack. But Clefbaum, he's been a little disappointing through the first couple games. Is there anything concerning? Like, is there anything we should be worried about with him? How are his minutes and everything looking?
Yeah, he like I said, Ethan Bear played almost 24 minutes the other night. I think he played a couple more minutes than Clefbaum did. Like Nurse is at 25, I think. I think Bear was at 24, and then Clefbaum was at 22. Like Bear and Nurse are their shutdown pairs, so they're going to be out quite a bit, either against the Taves line or the Kane line. So that's why I kind of like playing Ethan Bears, just because he's going to play so many minutes. Like Clefbaum's still going to get 22 minutes or whatever, and he'll get the top power play time. I'm not super concerned with him. It's just the way individual points percentage works out sometimes. Two guys I wanted to bring up. One was James Neal. He got pushed to the top power play unit, I think, for 1 or 2 power plays in their last game. I don't know if that's going to be a long-term thing, but if you're playing 150 lineups, maybe you want to get 1 or 2 James Neal one-offs in there, because he probably won't carry any ownership. And the last guy is Calvin DeHaan. He had a tough year in Carolina. He was effectively traded. He had his salary dumped to Chicago. He was injured all year. He's looked pretty good in the first couple of games. Like, he's looked like the defensive defenseman he normally is, but he's jumping up in the rush. He's making the quick first passes that he needs to. And when he's at his best, he's a shot block machine. Like, he's a guy that can put up, average over 2 blocks per game. And I think he's playing about 20 minutes so far. So Calvin DeHaan's another one of those punts where, I don't think you're going to get like a 20 to 25 point game out of him. But I think, for really cheap, you can get, a 3 block bonus plus a shot or 2 on goal or something like that. So Calvin DeHaan is a guy that I don't mind for a cheap defensive punt.
Yeah, I'll throw in Murphy. I think for FanDuel specifically, he's much cheaper over there. Just guy who gets decent minutes. Nothing special, but maybe get you a couple blocks and just ice time, and you hope that he can. The Blackhawks put up a bunch of goals, and he gets an assist or 2. But yeah, this game is like, if you want to fade the ownership, just X this game out. If you're an ultra aggressive GPP player, or make some sort of rule where you can only have 1 or 2 guys from this game. I'm not doing that. Like, I play a more spread out approach. So we didn't really talk about Taze, Saad, and Kubalik. They're very good offensively. They're not good defensively. Do we know who they're going to go up against? Is it going to be McDavid and Nugent Hopkins?
I assume it is. Let me just double check here.
I know the announcers were mentioning
they're going to go up against. We have them up against Trisaddle.
Okay, fair enough.
But like, honestly, like, whether it's the first line, maybe Doc will be better defensively than Dylan Strome. But the old Chicago 2's defensive numbers were terrible as well. So whether it was the first line or the second line, it didn't really matter. They were both going to get throttled.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, I think that concludes it for the slate. We got in and out of here in about, 48 minutes. No issue streaming today. I don't know. I feel some big wins coming here for the Awesemo.
Yeah, we're starting to find our sea legs here, buddy.
Yeah, no kidding. Real quick, want to mention SuperDraft. You can't see. Oh yeah, you can see the contests. I thought since I entered them in. There's my placeholder lineup. See, you can play everyone you want. You can play McDavid, Draisaitl, Kucherov, Kane, Marchand, and whoever else you want. I just clicked a bunch of names. But SuperDraft is great because you don't have to worry about salaries. You're just playing with the multipliers. You get rewarded for playing the 1.5 multiplier guys. If they have a huge game, they're going to be necessary to win a tournament. The tournaments are smaller, but much easier to win, and there's been a bunch of overlay, I think, every day I've played so far. So I'll be running it back. Come take some of my money on SuperDraft. Promo code Awesemo10 is how you get $10 in SuperDraft cash, which is just extra money to play DFS with. Just have to deposit $20 or more, and then I believe if you deposit $100 or more, you get $20 in SuperDraft cash. Let me just make sure that is still a thing. Yep, $20 free dollars on your first deposit of $100 or more. So SuperDraft is helping us out. Go support them. They're helping support us. And then tune in for all the shows we got today. NBA Live Before Lock, PGA Live Before Lock. If you're playing any DFS sport, we probably have a show for it. So you're not going to be shorted on that. All of our great hosts will be working hard for you guys again today. Hit the like button on the way out, and good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.